granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. Well, as you know, the NHS is a particular interest of mine, and so I was going to do a video about the Chagos deal, which has fallen through now. Deal. The Chagos ripoff. And apparently our government, which can't hang on to a principle from yesterday's supper to tomorrow's breakfast, they've given up on the idea of giving the Chagos Islands away and a dowry with it to Mauritius. But no, I'm sorry, Chagos is off. We're going to be talking about Nurse Melly. And Nurse Melly, she got into a little trouble. It was a couple of years ago, I think. But it goes like this. One day, a patient was brought into the hospital, and this patient was under guard because this patient was a prisoner. In fact, this patient had been convicted of, well, some of the worst crimes you can think of involving children. But I don't know what the patient is called. He is referred to throughout as Patient X, occasionally as Mr. X, usually as Patient X. And his name is not given out because, well, he may be an absolute bounder, but we've got to protect his dignity, haven't we? Anyway, I don't know what was wrong with Patient X either, but whatever it was, it required the administration of a catheter. Now, as some of you will be aware, a catheter for a man is not going to be the same length as a catheter for a woman. And Nurse Melly, a nurse of 12 years experience and so able to conduct this procedure without a higher up medical official with her, still had to consult a doctor about the treatment she was going to give this patient. And so she went out of the treatment room, leaving the patient there with the prison guard who must have been with him. She went out and she was talking on the phone to the doctor. She, during this conversation, referred to Patient X as Mr. X and he. Obviously, she had to do that in any case because the doctor had to be aware this was a man she was treating. When she came back into the treatment room, this is how Sex Matters reported it. This is Sex Matters. Sex Matters is an organisation that assists women who are, as much as they can, who are being bullied by men who are LARPing as women. They might do it the other way round as well, you know, men being bullied by women LARPing as men, but that's probably not going to happen as often. I've certainly never heard of it. Anyway, this is how the situation was reported by Sex Matters. The patient overheard this, that is, overheard Nurse Melly, let's have a look at her, referring to him as he and Mr. X, and he became enraged. He screamed that he was a woman and subjected Melly to repeated racial abuse. That is, he used the N-word multiple times. Reports also described him lunging, threatening to headbutt her, and to the extent that he actually did go for her and had to be restrained by the security guard, who was also one or two, whatever. He had to be restrained by the security intervention. So when he had calmed down enough to be spoken to, Melly offered to use the name, the female name that the patient had chosen, but explained she couldn't use the female pronouns because she was a Christian and had, and it says here in the Sex Matters report, beliefs about biological sex. Beliefs, it's a fact, it's not a belief, and she should know better than most. Anyway, after this incident, news got back to the NHS trust for which she worked, and they accused her of misgendering patient X, and they suspended her. They also reported her to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, who, having looked at the case, declared that she was a danger to the public. Well, Nurse Melly didn't go quietly into that good night, and she put up a fight. Her union was absolutely no use at all. Nursing unions seem particularly anti-nurse for some reason, but she got help from Christian Concern, here we are, and probably Sex Matters as well, and free speech organisations, as well as her MP, Claire Coutinho. And after a lot of fight, which she said it was a terrible situation. She was a nurse. She wasn't allowed to nurse. She didn't know whether her career was over. And she's been through hell and high water. And now the NH Trust have dropped their complaint. And I believe it says they've settled with her after she went to an employment tribunal, and the Nursing and Midwifery Council are taking no further action. That's big of them, isn't it? And in February, as I said, the Trust dropped the disciplinary hearing. So, is everything in the garden lovely? Well, no, it isn't. And it's because of this. The Trust has also confirmed that it has issued a written warning to the patient that threatening and racially offensive language will not be tolerated, and he may be banned from the Trust's premises. Now, as much as I am on Nurse Melly's side, and as much as I rejoice that she has been vindicated and returned to her job, the Trust should not be doing this, because that's not the Trust's job. Just like it wasn't the Trust's job to accuse an experienced nurse or any sort of nurse of misgendering, so it is not the Trust's job to pick and choose its patients. I remember when I was a teenager, I was interested in going into nursing or the medical profession, and I read a few books written by nurses. Most of them, as far as I remember, were nurses who were writing their memoirs, and many of them had been nursing during the Second World War. And they had German soldiers and airmen, downed airmen, in British hospitals. And these men were, you could say, awful people fighting for an awful cause, and furthermore killing British soldiers, and yet they were in British hospitals being taken care of, because that's what hospitals are for. Whatever the quality of the person who's there, once they are in a hospital needing hospital treatment, they are supposed to get hospital treatment. That's as far as it goes. And that's why the Trust should not be doing that. Not be tolerated, and he may be banned from the Trust premises. That's not for the Trust to decide. Now, I want you to see the irony here. That man, patient X, was in hospital from prison, and he was in prison for committing crimes against children, and they were treating him. But he calls a nurse the N-word a few times, and they're telling him they're thinking of not treating him anymore. Do you see the irony of this? And I am not saying that people who commit crimes against children shouldn't be treated. Do you understand? I'm saying that even somebody as horrible as that should be treated. Certainly, racial abuse doesn't come into that category. The NHS is there to look after sick people, whoever, whatever. That's their job. When they think they can pick and choose according to how they feel about the patient, that's the whole principle of hospital care out the window. And of course, it is showing up now. I mean, by the way, I'm going to be doing another video reading out more comments about my previous videos I've done in which people have had do not resuscitate notes on their hospital, notices on their hospital notes, because I'm getting constant feedback on that, and it seems like a serious problem. And the problem is this: there are doctors walking around hospitals thinking that they have the power of life and death over their patients. They feel it's their right. And that's exactly the same attitude as this. You don't like this guy because he uses the N-word, so you can decide his life isn't worth living and he shouldn't get medical treatment anymore. I mean, that's the basic principle. So you see, I'm not just talking about this. I'm talking about the whole ethos that's running rampant in National Health Service hospitals now. And in fact, probably through the whole medical profession. The NHS has no right to decide whether a patient is inconvenient or irritating, and to then decide that it's up to them, their decision, to end lives or deny treatment. In both situations, it's wrong. It's very wrong. All the way across. Okay, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.